Welcome to Special Investigations. Today's episode, Crop Circles, hosted by Jaime Maussan.
In the 1980s, the discovery of strange formations in wheat, barley, and cornfields in England became public knowledge. They were given the name crop circles. These figures varied in size and outline and included elaborate designs in Morse code, binary code, sacred geometry, astronomical geometry, and many others. Some experts considered them messages of intelligent life and asserted that they were a circle of information that human beings were required to decipher.
The crop circles are fascinating to me. Some of them obviously were created by people. Whether any of them were created by something else is a great question. Secularism in science was beginning to take our mysteries away and a lot of our wonder and a lot of the magic out of the world, right? This returns a lot of wonder and amazement and magic to the world. And the possibilities are endless if this is true. So it's a way of bringing back to society, to mankind, something we lost, but in a way that's consistent with science. So many amazing possibilities. That's what's one of the reasons this is so exciting, right? There's so many incredibly intriguing possibilities and opportunities. So we have a chance to get these answers.
On November 16, 1974, the crop circles would become a worldwide topic thanks to the interstellar message sent towards the constellation of Hercules, 25,000 light-years away by renowned astronomers Frank Drake and Carl Sagan from the Arecibo radio telescope. The message consisted of information about our decimal system, our DNA, average height, the number of inhabitants, and an image of the transmitting dish. It was estimated that it would take 25,000 years to arrive and another 25,000 to be intercepted by a civilization that knew how to answer it. Surprisingly, 27 years later, on August 20, 2001, humanity woke up to a possible return message in the form of an elaborate crop circle. The reply was created in binary code, answering one by one the detailed message sent by Sagan and Drake. The crop circle confirmed the same decimal system, but the DNA and evolution were very different. Their height appeared to be smaller, but had a much larger population. 1 year later, in another message, the creation included an image of what appeared to be the sender's face. Next to it, a disc-shaped object containing what some believed to be a text in binary code. The message was translated with the warning, "Beware of the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises." Much pain, but still time.
Over the last 15, 17 years, I probably have had one question that people ask me more than any other. Do you think crop formations are made to communicate with humans? And if so, why is it so confusing? Humans don't understand. And my answer has always been basically the same. There are just certain areas that keep having the repeated phenomenon, not all over. That suggests that there is some relationship between the geography here and what we'll call it the intelligence is able to do. And I think that it is more likely that the crop formations are providing some kind of a technological tool to this profound intelligence. They may be the same makers of the ziggurats and the pyramids so long ago, only now instead of working in stone circles and stone pyramids, they're working and putting patterns into the skin of the earth. Could it be that we do have time travelers and that this is intimate to being able to travel in time for reasons unknown, that there must be markers and that the markers of time travelers could show up as crop formations in the fields of the earth?
Although crop circles are considered a recent phenomenon, the earliest evidence appeared in an ancient Aboriginal rock painting discovered by Joseph Bradshaw in the late 19th century in the Prince Regent River Valley of Western Australia. In England, the oldest known crop circle was depicted in 1678. In a woodcut, an image of the devil was depicted with a scythe, cutting the crop in the shape of an oval. According to the report, a farmer had refused to pay a local laborer, stating that he would rather have the devil himself cut the field. That evening, a strange firelight was seen over the crop, and by the next morning, part of the field had flattened into an oval-shaped circle. 9 years later, Robert Plot, a chemistry professor at Oxford University, published the story in which he referred to circular marks in wheat fields containing several illustrations. However, we will never know for sure if those circles resembled the ones appearing in modern times. In the early days of the crop circle phenomenon, the farmers were puzzled, but at the same time, they were curious. At first, they allowed the researchers to enter their land and do their work, and even contacted them early in the morning to alert them when they found new formations in their fields.
I'm skeptical, is that the right expression? I'm not a firm believer in UFOs, etc., etc. I saw nobody. And the first I knew about it was when you gentlemen arrived in the field this morning. It is beautiful artwork. It is very, very precise, yes. From your pictures, it is a very, very spectacular formation, as you said. But no one was seen doing it, and there is no evidence that anybody's been here.
However, the ever-increasing number of visitors began to create problems for these farmers. The curious, who normally lived in cities and had no real understanding of life in the countryside, began to arrive in large numbers, blocking the small roads, preventing farmers from doing their daily work, and damaging crops. Visitors tore down fences to gain better access to the crop circles, walking over wheat, barley, and corn, damaging the harvest. In addition, they smoked and left garbage in the fields. These unwanted visitors, apart from inflicting financial losses, were discourteous to the local villagers, causing distress and anger among the farmers. The owner of this land allows us to be here in exchange for a donation, which is collected in an honesty box at the entrance. The funds will go towards cancer research, and it is one of the very few parcels allowing visitors. However, most landowners prefer to expel the visitors, sometimes by force.
We put a little honesty box at the side of the field, yes. Several of my boys took it in turns to sit by the honesty box and make sure people put their contributions into it. When we first saw it, we were quite annoyed because we farm here, and it was in a crop of wheat, which was flattened onto the ground, and I estimate that it was probably about an acre of wheat which was spoilt. My first reaction was to prevent anybody from coming to see it, because I thought they would do a lot more damage by walking into the field and traipsing about in my crop. But a few people arrived and they were very persuasive, and so I allowed them to come in and have a look around, all convinced that there was some outside power from outer space coming to create this thing. You couldn't really see the formation, but the photographs taken from airplanes are absolutely amazing. Apart from this five-pointed star with the extra points sticking out from the points, there were also a lot of little circles, very precisely placed. I think it was probably done in the dark. And it wasn't until we saw the photographs taken from the air that we realized what a beautiful thing it was. People are very private about their land and their property, and they don't want people walking about and visit the site, and it will encourage people to do another one the following year.
In 1981, Pat Delgado, a retired NASA engineer, investigated dozens of formations, culminating in the publication of a book entitled Circular Evidence, helping to bring the phenomenon to an international audience. It did not take long for detractors to slam the publication and dismiss it as an ordinary human creation whose sole intention was to deceive the public by entering fields under cover of darkness and stamping the designs using boards and ropes. The doubters saw their suspicions come true when in 1991, two elderly men claimed that they had been the authors of all crop circles since 1978. The media coverage was incessant, and the new phenomenon, which had been gaining a worldwide following, was dealt a severe blow. The constant, unfounded coverage also gave Doug and Dave credit for the creation of hundreds of formations. Some experts on the subject claim that the news helped to fix it in people's minds forever. The press coverage not only damaged the love affair between a worldwide audience and the phenomena, but created a rift between crop circle investigators, trying to document the agrograms and the landowners. The constant media coverage of a couple of local pranksters, deemed responsible for creating hundreds of pictograms since 1978, upset the farmers deeply. Doug and Dave had confessed to entering their land at night and ruining their crops for decades. The 1991 crop circle season ended with enthusiasts baffled. The morning of September 9th, the bubble burst. The front page of a British newspaper headlined, "The Men Who Conned the World." Doug and Dave, two party buddies over 60 years old, had produced all crop circles since 1978. The story spread around the world. Millions of people who had hoped for an alien communication form were shocked. In the following months, these two seniors explained how they decided during a night of drinking to fool the world. The pair were in constant demand, charging for appearances, and explaining in detail how they were able to elaborate intricate formations in total darkness, some thousands of feet long, using ropes, boards, and a piece of twisted wire attached to their baseball cap.
Well, I remember there was not a single discussion anywhere about anybody making anything. And 2020 and 60 Minutes and all over the world, there was straight news coverage about these amazing patterns. And in 1991, the tabloid television in England had on the Doug and Dave character in front of a camera saying, "We're the ones responsible for crop circles." And here these two guys get trotted out with this sort of corny, impossible story because in 1991, that very summer, we counted 23 countries around the world, both hemispheres, were holding the complex patterns of what they call pictograms in England. Doug and Dave were not in Japan. They weren't in Australia. They were only talking about making some circles in Somerset and Wiltshire. So, Jaime, how could the New York Times, the London Times, and the world media run headlines? Crop circle mystery solved. The answer is Doug and Dave. That was the most rigged, impossible headline that had no investigation. The newspapers, TV, everybody picked it up, an AP story, ran with it, and from then on, everybody said crop formations are made by Doug and Dave.
These people want nothing more than to deceive. And it would be very stupid of me to think that I have not been deceived sometimes. I am deceived sometimes, but not a lot, not often, but I've been deceived. Very often I can look at a circle and not only say it's man-made, I can tell you who the man is. The lack of style. But look, I don't want to talk about this. It's a waste of time. You know, we're given miracles, we're given diamonds, and we want to snuffle about like pigs in the gutter. Enough. I don't care if 90% are man-made. Let's talk about the ones that are real.
The best way to analyze the work of self-depicted hoaxers is to match them against public creations of crop circles around the world. In 2006, a team of students from the University of Oregon created a crop circle of a well-known internet logo at an oat field measuring 220 feet in diameter. A member outside the formation on a tall ladder indicated where to flatten the crop, and the team of 12 students used lighting to continue working at night, completing it in under 24 hours. In the process, they had left the plant severely damaged. Another man-made formation was created in 2014 to advertise the launch of a new mobile processor. A world-renowned team traveled to Salinas in the state of California to complete the circle. It took over 2 weeks to locate the field, complete the diagrams, and finalize the circle. The final design was about 200 feet in diameter and built on flat ground. Like the Oregon effort, the crop was severely damaged by the use of boards, ropes, and markers. The first two samples at 200 feet are relatively small compared to the crop circles that appear in England overnight. However, let's analyze an effort to create a formation hundreds of meters long in South Australia. The design was commissioned by a Japanese brewer to advertise its product. A team of 40 professionals with a budget of over $1 million was commissioned to build the advertisement. The effort required drone operators and farm workers with experience moving massive amounts of earth, tractors, drum rollers, and bush cutters. Although the most difficult part was reproducing Japanese text, taking more than half a day to complete each symbol, the project took a week with 40 men working from dawn to dusk. Comparing the three projects with the figures appearing in England, it would be difficult to contemplate the use of working lights or noisy equipment, which would alert the farmers. It should be noted that in over 40 years and hundreds of completed circles, no one has been caught trespassing, let alone destroying crops, not only in England, but anywhere else in the world where these formations have appeared. In the early days of the crop circles, none of the pictograms were considered to be the work of falsifiers. However, some researchers thought this could be a reasonable explanation for those designs that were simple and poor in construction. However, on July 12, 1990, Alton Barnes became the center of the crop circle attention when a 500-feet pictogram appeared overnight. According to experts, its large size and intricate design were extremely difficult to forge. Thousands of people descended on this small farming village in an attempt to catch a glimpse of this enigmatic circle. A total of 81 formations were recorded in England that year. Another formation that caused special attention appeared on both sides of the Berkshire County Highway. Each formation consisted of rings with straight lines and small circles measuring 250 feet each. At first glance, they appeared to be a pair of completely abstract crop circles. Still, researcher Andreas Muller was able to superimpose both formations and, upon inverting them, discovered, to his amazement, that they revealed a face identical to that of the Christ in the Shroud of Turin. Many followers believed that it was an omen, perhaps an implicit message that the pieces must be put together for a new spirituality to emerge. On August 12, 2001, farmers from Milk Hill discovered one of the largest geometric formations ever to appear in the United Kingdom. It measured 800 feet in diameter and included 409 circles of different sizes. According to local witnesses, this figure appeared in a lapse of 6 hours and in complete darkness. Locals stated that the weather was extreme that night, with one of the worst storms on record. This means that the designers would only have 45 seconds to create each of the 409 circles on the side of a hill, something that anyone would consider an impossible task, especially during a thunderstorm. However, despite this fact, a well-known website about crop circles published an anonymous post claiming that they were the authors of this monumental work. The post mentioned that the crop circle was created by a team of 13 people and took only 6 hours to create the pictogram, during a thunderstorm and in total darkness. This anonymous individual claimed that the 409 circles were created using a system of rope and knots. We are in front of the so-called cube, a crop circle with unusual characteristics. Some consider that the figures around it represent human beings or extraterrestrials looking toward the center. It is important to mention that very few groups claim credit for the creation of specific crop circles and prefer to do it in a general way. While several individuals have claimed responsibility for the pictograms, they have not provided any visual proof that would demonstrate their ability to produce innovative designs. Another enigmatic design was discovered at the Barbary Castle Triangle. The crop circle appeared to have a message written in some unknown language, which kept many researchers and mathematicians scratching their heads. It wasn't until Professor Stephen Hawking and a team of linguists established that it was written in a form of post-Augustinian Latin. The message translated as, "We oppose deception." Since crop circles became a worldwide phenomenon, a large number of researchers and enthusiasts have conducted night watches at popular locations in the United Kingdom. They all attempted to witness the creation of a pictogram, and even though over the years several eyewitnesses have testified to seeing crop circles during the formation process, very few have provided evidence. There are few cases where video footage has been made available. One of these cases happened on 7/7/7, that is July 7, 2007, in which Gary King, Paula Presti-Jones, and Winston Keach decided to spend a night watch they would never forget at Alton Barnes. On July 7, 2007, Gary King, Paula Presti-Jones, and Winston Keach returned to Alton Barnes for a night watch. They chose this site because of the multiple crop circle sightings and knew well that from the top of Cap Hill, they would be able to survey the entire region. Keach arrived with a large trove of video equipment, including 2 light-sensitive cameras, which he set up to record at night.
It was a very quiet night. Initially, I thought I may be wasting my time yet again. I've spent many years and many holidays sitting on these hilltops and waiting to see if I could capture the thing I saw the years previous, and failed. This evening there was an excitation in the air. You could feel a tingling and an energy, and it led me to believe that there was a good probability of an occurrence. This is a 2/100th of a lux sensitivity monochrome infrared and visible light CCTV camera. Second only to an image intensifier, this is probably one of the most sensitive cameras you can actually obtain.
In the morning, about 1:30 a.m, we arrived here on Knapp Hill to begin a night vigil overlooking Eastfield here in the background. When we got here, we met up with a cameraman called Win. He showed us, when we got here, he showed us an image intensifier device that he had, and we scanned across the field. It was like looking at the field in sort of daylight, you know, it brought in more light. And we scanned across Eastfield and across the field of rape here and the Drovers Road and this field of wheat here, and we could see that there was no formations in the field at that time. Then we sat here then just talking and overlooking the field until about 3 o'clock. Just after 3 o'clock, we had a big white flash of light, completely encompassed the landscape.
The last sweep that Gary and I made was at 1:35, and the last digital still photograph we took was at 1:23 in the morning. The flash event occurred at approximately 3:13 in the morning, and the first visibility we had on CCTV tape of the circle was 7 minutes after that point. Okay, the flash was momentary. It was of the nature that if you blinked you would miss it. It was literally like a lightning flash. It was like a lightning flash with no thunder. It was diffused, as if somebody had a large photographic flash up in the cloud and just illuminated the whole area. As the flash occurred, we couldn't see the field, except for the momentary instance when the flash went off. We couldn't actually see any detail. It was absolutely pitch dark.
It was around that time that Win had to go down to his vehicle to change the tapes over. So he went down and done that and came back up to the hill. And at that point in the evening, it was completely dark. What we were looking down on was a completely black field. We couldn't see anything at that point. About 20 minutes after that, as some of the light began to creep in from the east over there, we started to see a shadow of what looked like some sort of formation down below, but it was still too imperceptible really for the naked eye to see.
Gary felt there was something in the field. He couldn't see it, but he actually felt that there was something there, and he persuaded me to pick up the camera equipment and investigate. And it was at this very point that we saw for the first time on the VX2100 that there was a very significant formation in Eastfield.
So Win got up and looked through his camera, which has an image enhancing kind of capability, and through the lens of the camera we could clearly see this formation that was laid out here in the field before us.
Gary was determined that he wanted to be the first in the field. So he said, come on, you're the cameraman, you stay on the hill and you film me and I'll go down to the field. So he walked down the hill and I stayed on top of the hill with the camera and zoomed in. He had the amazing opportunity to experience a corn circle just after it had formed and be the first person in there. Inside the circle, the lays changed sometimes from circle to circle. That is, the direction and intricacy changed occasionally. The circle I paid particular attention to had a relatively simple clockwise lay and had a central swirled area which had no indication of any indentation such as sighting poles or anything that I would expect to use to be able to survey this kind of formation. And really only from being in the circle can you grasp how difficult a task it would be to make this under any circumstances, especially so in the dark.
So at the point of seeing that on that camera and the point of realising that this may be something that people might sit up and take notice finally, I was just jumping for joy, and I still am.
I was very excited, but I was in a bit of shock as well. Gary was dancing around and I was sort of jigging. I was, you know, just
Is this real?
yeah.
Yeah.
And as we came in from the south, you couldn't even see half or 2/3 of the formation as it went down the hill. As I stood in the largest circle in the center, I was overwhelmed again by the amount of flattened crop. And it dawned on me that this is more flattened crop than any formation that I've been into in the last 7 summers visiting Wiltshire. So I went about doing some rough measurements to get an idea of how much of the crop was flattened. And it turns out that, by my estimation, approximately 97,000 square feet was flattened just in the 60 largest of the 90 circles involved. And that came out to about nearly 2¼ acres of flattened crop. This, to me, is by far the largest and the most flattened crop of any that I've seen. Well, if it was done by people in some sort of way, it must have taken quite a team or else taken quite a while, one of those two things, because there are over 90 circles in the formation itself and an additional 60 circles outside the formation. Many crop circle researchers call those grape shots. So over 150 circles were produced, and I told you about the acreage that was flattened, and to do it with precision is amazing.
This video, recorded at dawn in Oliver Castle, United Kingdom, shows several orbs near a corn crop while a pattern slowly appears in the field below. However, instead of proof that an advanced civilization was caught on tape while creating a crop circle, the 16-second video is still considered a hoax. In 1996, John Whaley, a 19-year-old man, was woken up by strange sounds during a rainy and cold summer night. When he opened his tent, he noticed several orbs flying around the field below. He recorded the objects for 15 minutes and drove to the Barge Inn, a hangout for crop circle investigators, to show people the video. During playback, he first noticed that these orbs weren't just flying. To his surprise, a crop circle appeared beneath the orbs. According to several accounts, Whaley lent the footage to someone at the inn who promised him media exposure. However, the footage was eventually lost, and only a 16-second clip of the original remained. Even though the clip was sent to a lab in London and deemed real, skeptics argued that Whaley had time to drive to Bristol, animate the balls of light, add the crop circle, and drive back to play the footage. 3 decades later, with the advent of digital technology and motion graphics programs, this might be easier to accomplish. However, in 1996, video equipment was analog, and driving to Bristol and back after creating the video in less than 5 hours would have been a near impossible feat. Perhaps Whaley was in the right place at the right time and captured an actual crop circle being created. Unfortunately, we may never know the full story since John Whaley went underground 3 decades ago. Even though he spoke to a Japanese television network, the interview never aired, leaving us with a sense of missed opportunity to uncover the truth behind this extraordinary event. The county of Wiltshire in England is no strange to mystery. The first place in the world with monumental stone circles were ever discovered 5,000 years before the region became known as the epicenter of crop circles. The ancient megalithic monument at Stonehenge precedes the Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians. It is one of the hundreds of samples of the Neolithic period in the area who still remain intact today and serves as evidence of their antiquity. It is a real mystery how a civilization that old was building temples of stone so large that they often have to be dragged from great distances. A difficult task for a population that, according to archaeologists, was nothing more than primitive savages.
In my research, I've found not only is the location of Wiltshire connected to the ancient monuments of Stonehenge and Avebury, etc., but these monuments also contain the same hidden or implicit geometry as the crop circles. Another geometric shape that was extensively used by the ancient builders is the 5-12-13 triangle. The capitals of Britain, Edinburgh, Cardiff and London, are precisely joined by a 5-12-13 triangle. When you realise that this triangle is prolific in the stone circles, which means that this triangle is something to do with astronomy, then you realise that it's telling us something about the culture that built these ancient monuments. But the modern mystery of crop circles has revealed that they contain the same hidden and implicit geometry. So it seems clear to me that we are being directed towards these geometric constructions for a reason.
The first detailed investigation of megalithic sites was published by Alexander Thom, who spent most of his weekends and free time measuring and analyzing 500 sites. Thom suggested that many were built as astronomical complexes, providing the basis for the scientific discipline of archaeoastronomy.
The first detailed examination of the ancient megalithic sites was carried out by Professor Alexander Thom in 1955. His conclusions established that the builders possessed a high level of understanding in the disciplines of geometry and trigonometry, thousands of years before Pythagoras was born. Despite his meticulous use of scientifically accepted methods, Thom's findings were largely rejected by the academic community. 20th century academia was very reluctant to accept that what they considered to be their primitive ancestors could have ever possessed such sophisticated understanding of geometry and trigonometry. And it was the Druids who then took this to a sophisticated science and took these stones from various locations and planted them in very specific locations in Wiltshire and constructed Stonehenge, etc.
Silbury Hill, a Neolithic artificial construction comprised of 300,000 cubic meters of earth, plaster, and cut stone, is another unexplained mystery in Wiltshire. The structure, half a millennium old, rises 30 meters into the sky. Its flat top resembles the shape of Mesoamerican pyramids, adding to its mystique. Archaeologists excavated the hill in 2000 and discovered that the ancient settlers built it with earth taken from several parts of England, probably representing Goddess Earth, whom they believed would bless their lands with fertility. Starting in 2004, the perfect strokes of the crop circles started to include messages with pre-Hispanic themes, pictograms that included in their outline calendars made by ancient Mesoamerican cultures. These references included the Mayans' eternal cycle of life and death, and a series of symbols referring to the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl, or Kukulkan for the Mayans. That same year, another important figure appeared close to Wayland's smithy, denoting a circle inside another circle, and a square with Mayan characteristics.
Vemos una espiral ascendente.
We see an ascending spiral, an eternal dance, the duality in the universe, the dance of the Shia of the Mayans. It extends like plumes, like a flight, which is similar to an ascending spiral. In the center of this figure, we see the 4 angles, the 4 cardinal points, marked in the outer circle. In 2012, the count of 13 Bactuns ended, and a new one began. The greatest prophecy of the Mayans points to the return of Kukulkan. The prophecy fulfilled upon his return. The man finds his transcendental path in the universe, and his connection, his harmony, between the high and the low, between the planets, and between people.
In 2005, 2 important figures in Wayland's smithy included a series of numbers related to the Solcan calendar, an important sequence celebrated by all the Mesoamerican ancient world.
Vimos que en el centro había un eclipse.
At the center of the crop center is an eclipse, but an eclipse inside an egg. In the Mayan language, egg means zero. There are two ways of saying zero. One is mabal, and the other is he, which means egg and zero. May 20th is zero day, which includes 13 symbols or 28 days, adding up to 364 days, 365, if you add the 0 day, also known as rattle day.
That same year, another important figure appeared close to Wayland's smithy that included an extraordinary design, denoting a circle inside another circle and a square with Mayan characteristics.
Esta es una figura muy grande.
This is a very large figure, which again speaks to us about use of glyphs and symbols used by the Mayans. The crop circle represents astronomical events with a very peculiar star. The star in the center represents the above and the below in the Mayan religion. It shows how to unite the above, which is the divine, with the below, the existence of man on earth. The creator of this pictogram left a clear message using Mayan symbols and the circle as perfection in the universe. In other words, the contact between the human being and divinity.
In 2004, crop circles that included pre-Hispanic characteristics, most probably Mayan or Aztec, appeared overnight in front of Silbury Hill, considered by many an ancient man-made pyramid. Crop circle experts have divided their appearance into 5 different categories. The first is geometry. On July 7, 2018, a geometric figure appeared in Martinsville Hill, consolidating the creator behind this formation as someone capable of including 4 different pentagrams within a single design, perhaps expressing the principle of growth and regeneration. The second category is the religious and philosophical symbols. These are earthly icons created by man to represent different stages of civilizations throughout the centuries. On August 15, 2008, in Etchellhampton, a crop circle with the design of a Christian cross with an area equivalent to 3 football fields appeared overnight. Animals are the third category. Through the years, we have seen representations of birds and fish, as well as varieties of insects and butterflies. On June 12, 2009, in Getsbury, a pictogram of a bird in flames was discovered in a field. The design was perhaps taken from Greek mythology associated with the sun and fire. The phoenix was said to gain new life by rising from its ashes. 9 days before this formation appeared, another one, representing a dragonfly, had appeared on the same field. Curiously, the symbol of the dragonfly also symbolizes change, transformation, adaptability, and self-realization in many cultures. Astronomical symbols comprise the fourth category, elaborate representations of our solar system that include astronomical knowledge of future alignments. On June 28, 1995, a crop circle showed the positions of the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and the Earth, surrounded by the asteroid belt. The creators must have had an advanced understanding of astronomy and a specific concern to demonstrate it in a crop field in the middle of the night. Which brings us to the fifth item, mathematics, the category that defies any form of interpretation. In this category, we needed the help of capable researchers to find the data hidden within crop circles, which had remained unsolved for decades. Michael Glickman, a former architecture professor and researcher, was the first to discover that measuring each arc from the center to where the circle is briefly broken yields 1 number per cycle, which results in the first 10 numbers of pi, a highly original way of using geometry to represent digits and numbers. In his 30 years as a crop circle researcher, his many books and lectures on the subject around the world, Michael Glickman touched the lives of thousands and inspired many more.
Why would governments suppress the truth about a phenomena that can interact with cereal crops in both hemispheres over, it's getting on to 25 years, at least in the modern age of crop circles, going back into at least the last half of the 80s. Would governments suppress this because they're afraid? There is no reason that I can see that the military should be flying over crop formations, but they do. And there have been reports both in the United States, Canada, and in England that the military fly with infrared videotape on some of these special housings in military helicopters, and this is a quote, to look for and chase away the mysterious lights that make crop formations that came from an MI5, MI6 person in England. Why? So maybe fear, maybe political fear of a phenomena that maybe they have information that it's not all just one. Maybe there are competing agendas and governments don't want anybody to know that there might be a secret war.
Although the epicenter of the crop circles is indisputably located in Wiltshire, the phenomenon has spread to many countries. The first international reports began in 1997 when two formations appeared in Austria. The first on August 14th in Nickelsdorf consisted of concentric circles, and the second in Kärnten, with a huge circle containing a key and another circle of approximately 250 feet in length. That same year, a total of 29 crop circles were reported worldwide. Many of these pictograms were accompanied by sightings of strange lights. Eyewitnesses claimed to have seen red balls of light circling about 100 kilometers north of Helsinki. In 1998, 47 formations were quantified worldwide, and in 1999, there were 60. The phenomenon was growing, as were reports of groups claiming to have created them, such as the Netherlands, when a formation 650 feet in diameter containing 72 circles was discovered. It was so perfect that it was difficult to accept that a group of 9 men and 6 women created it in a few hours using only boards and ropes. The group did not provide evidence of the process, nor were any other witnesses who saw them creating the formation. However, after the year 2000, the number of formations decreased substantially, and only 12 crop circles were reported outside of England. In 2007, 98 formations were found internationally. That year in Norway, a formation was found in the village of Telemark in a barley crop with a length of 70 feet, with a precise and well-defined pattern, with many stems showing continuous bends, without any damage. In 2008, 100 formations were reported internationally. In Illinois, United States, a farmer discovered 5 crop circles in a soybean field, 3 of them 60 feet in diameter. The local sheriff found no clues and no witnesses. Upon examination, it was reported that none of the plants inside the crop circle were broken, but were perfectly bent at a 90-degree angle. Although crop circles have proliferated since the early days of 1978, reaching their peak during the first 10 years of the millennium, the number has declined drastically since 2011. Some researchers believe the phenomenon reached its zenith and is in decline. However, many believers hope that something extraordinary will happen that will finally convince the skeptics that the pictograms are implications beyond our planet. It seems plausible that the crop circles follow the natural cycles of birth, growth, and decay. But if the phenomenon does continue, it will be up to the future generations to investigate and find the answers.